Hello everyone, welcome back to the class on building a climax. I am Namita Paul from Kamala Nehru College and today we are looking at Unit 3, the second part of the video. We have already learned how to build a climax in a complicated story. We have also looked at the definition, features and functions of a climax in a story using The Paper Bag Princess by Robert Munsch as an example. In today's video, we will learn about the uncomplicated climax and its role in the plot story. We will also explore experimental, reflective and modern fiction where the climax is not essential. Finally, we will analyze the postscript to the climax and its importance in creative writing. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify different styles of writing a climax. In addition to that, you should be able to recognize and understand the exceptions to the use of a climax in literature. You will also be able to write the postscript to a climax and understand the meaning of it. These skills will go a long way to help you figure out when a climax is needed in a story and build one effectively, depending on the genre that you are dabbling in. So let's begin by looking at the climax in an uncomplicated plot story. As against complicated climax discussed earlier, both the climax and its resolution are straightforward and clear and are most easily identified in an incident or plot story. There is quite a bit of the external world in these stories, and these, in a sense, are easily shared details. The author here has very little possibility of changing the nature of these realities. Physical features will remain the same no matter what. For example, the Taj Mahal is a structure of specific dimensions, situation and period, and nothing is going to change that. The concreteness of these details contribute to the enjoyment of the story by the largest number of readers. Abstractions can be difficult to understand and require special skills to comprehend, so sometimes simplicity works better in a story. Even the predictability of the resolution can go towards adding to the enjoyment of the effort. In fact, it can make the story believable and provide comfort to the reader while detailing a slice of life. The stories of writers like Maupassant, Poe and Chekhov contain this structure and are always enjoyable and thought-provoking for the reader. The best example to understand this point is through reading and analyzing a short story. Today, we are going to use Chekhov's story titled Joy as an illustration of an uncomplicated climax. So here it is, Joy by Anton Chekhov. It was 12 o'clock at night. Mitya Kuldarov, with excited face and ruffled hair, flew into his parents' flat and hurriedly ran through all the rooms. His parents had already gone to bed. His sister was in bed, finishing the last page of a novel. His schoolboy brothers were asleep. "Where have you come from?" cried his parents in amazement. "What is the matter with you?" "Oh, don't ask. I never expected it. No, I never expected it. It's positively incredible." Mitya laughed and sank into an armchair, so overcome by happiness that he could not stand on his legs. "It's incredible. You can't imagine. Look." His sister jumped out of bed and, throwing a quilt round her, went into her brother. The schoolboys woke up. "What's the matter? You don't look like yourself." "It's because I'm so delighted, Mama. Do you know how all Russia knows of me? All Russia. Till now, only you knew that there was a registration clerk called Dmitry Kuldarov, and now all Russia knows it. Mama, oh Lord." Mitya jumped up, ran up and down all the rooms and then sat down again. "Why? What has happened? Tell us sensibly." You live like wild beasts. You don't read the newspapers and take no notice of what's published, and there's so much that is interesting in the papers. If anything happens, it's all known at once. Nothing is hidden. How happy I am. Oh Lord, you know it's only celebrated people whose names are published in the papers, and now they have gone and published mine. What do you mean? Where? The papa turned pale. The mama glanced at the holy image and crossed herself. The schoolboys jumped out of bed and, just as they were in short nightshirts, went up to their brother. Yes, my name has been published. Now all Russia knows of me. Keep the paper, Mama, in memory of it. We will read it sometimes. Look! Mitya pulled out of his pocket a copy of the paper, gave it to his father, and pointed with his finger to a passage marked with blue pencil. Read it. The father put on his spectacles. Do read it. The mama glanced at the holy image and crossed herself. The papa cleared his throat and began to read. At 11 o'clock on the evening of the 29th of December, a registration clerk of the name of Dmitry Kuldarov, you see, go on. A registration clerk of the name of Dmitry Kuldarov, coming from the beer shop in Kozin's building in Little Bronya, in an intoxicated condition, that's me, and Semyon Petrovich, that's all described exactly. Go on, listen. Intoxicated condition, slipped and fell under a horse belonging to a sledge driver, a peasant of the village of Durikino in the Yunovsky district, called Ivan Drotov. The frightened horse stepping over Kuldarov and drawing the sledge over him, together with a Moscow merchant of the second guild called Stepan Lukov, who was in it, dashed along the street and was caught by some houseboaters. Kuldarov, at first in an unconscious condition, was taken to the police station and there examined by the doctor. The blow he had received on the back of his head, it was from the shaft, Papa. Go on, read the rest. He had received on the back of his head turned out not to be serious. The incident was duly reported. Medical aid was given to the injured man. They told me to foment the back of my head with cold water. You have read it now? Ah, so you see, now it's all over Russia. Give it here. Mitya seized the paper, folded it up and put it into his pocket. I'll run round to the Makarovs and show it to them. I must show it to the Ivanetskys too, Natasha Ivanova and Anisim Vasilievich. I'll run. Goodbye. Mitya put on his cap with its cockade and, joyful and triumphant, ran into the street. So, as you can see, this simple short story reminds us of the perplexing and varied ways in which human beings can experience joy or happiness. The protagonist, Mitya Kuldarov, is overjoyed to read about his drunken exploits in a local newspaper. He is overjoyed at the slightly delusional prospect of becoming a local celebrity as a consequence of his infamy. The staging of the story is set by introducing us to a slowly awakening household where sleep is interrupted by the arrival of joyous news. The momentum is built by getting the secondary characters in the story to wake up gradually to the news which is read out from the newspapers. The constant repetition of the news and the incomplete sentences add to the rising arc of the story, albeit in a direct manner. The conflict in the story arises from the fact that Mitya and his parents have differing views about his behavior. While Mitya is full of happiness that his actions have resulted in his being mentioned in a newspaper, his parents are concerned about his well-being. They seem to be worried about the fact that he could have been injured or worse, killed as a consequence of his actions, but Mitya himself seems to be oblivious to this fact. Perhaps his parents are worried about his reputation, which might get ruined if he is characterized as an alcoholic, clumsy, and accident-prone man because of the article. Mitya, of course, is oblivious to these consequences and views the story as a stroke of good luck and his exploits as something to boast about to everyone. The climax of the story is predictable and uncomplicated. Since the conflict consists of differing opinions between Mitya and his parents, it is resolved by the climax, where Mitya seizes the newspaper and walks out happily to share the news with others. The climax reveals that Mitya is in awe of the media, represented here by the newspaper. Mitya is like many others in the world then and today, and does not foresee the long-term consequences of his actions. In fact, the story has been building steadily towards this climax, but telling us that he has already made a similar mistake in the past by getting drunk and risking his life. The reader is not shocked by the choice made by Mitya, as it is completely expected from someone encountered their 15 minutes of fame. The incident or plot story therefore has made the climax easy to locate, while making the story memorable and amusing through its combination of satire with realism. The Joy by Anton Chekhov demonstrates that it is not essential to have a complex climax with convoluted plots. An effortless depiction of an ordinary morning in the lives of everyday characters can also work as a fascinating look into the human psyche and the variety of reactions that can be part of human lives. But there is another kind of writing that is possible. The writings of Andre Gide, Franz Kafka, and in more recent times, Alain Robbe-Grillet, Marguerite Duras, and a host of new writers do not necessarily tell a story, though they are interesting in themselves, without the beginning, middle, and end structure in which a climax and resolution is the final part. Latin American writing in general, and that of Gabriel Garcia Marquez in particular, does not entirely depend on climaxes either. Apart from the exotic appeal that the writing may have for non-Latin American readers and others, his stories weave one episode after another, while sustaining the interest of the reader. As a matter of fact, it is considered among the avant-garde writing community that a climax is an outdated component of creative writing, necessary perhaps only for genre fiction. Genre fiction includes things like detective fiction or romantic stories. Now, let's read an example of avant-garde fiction that does not include the conventional climax. This is the experimental contemporary work titled Girl by Jamaica Kincaid. Here it is. Wash the white clothes on Monday and put them on the stone heap. Wash the color clothes on Tuesday and put them on the clothesline to dry. Don't walk barehead in the hot sun. Cook pumpkin fritters in very hot sweet oil. Soak your little cloths right after you take them off. When buying cotton to make yourself a nice blouse, be sure that it doesn't have gum in it, because that way it won't hold up well after a wash. Soak saltfish overnight before you cook it. Is it true that you sing Benna in Sunday school? Always eat your food in such a way that it won't turn someone else's stomach. On Sundays, try to walk like a lady and not like the slut you are so bent on becoming. Don't sing Benna in Sunday school. You mustn't speak to wharf rat boys, not even to give directions. Don't eat fruits on the street. Flies will follow you. But I don't sing Benna on Sundays at all and never in Sunday school. This is how to sew on a button. This is how to make a buttonhole for the button you have just sewed on. This is how to hem a dress when you see the hem coming down, and so to prevent yourself from looking like a slut I know you are so bent on becoming. This is how you iron your father's khaki shirt so that it doesn't have a crease. This is how you iron your father's khaki pants so that they don't have a crease. This is how you grow okra, far from the house, because okra trees harbor red ants. When you are growing dashin, make sure it gets plenty of water, or else it makes your throat itch when you are eating it. This is how you sweep a corner. This is how you sweep a whole house. This is how you sweep a yard. This is how you smile at someone you don't like too much. This is how you smile to someone you don't like at all. This is how you smile to someone you like completely. This is how you set a table for tea. This is how you set a table for dinner. This is how you set a table for dinner with an important guest. This is how you set a table for lunch. This is how you set a table for breakfast. This is how to behave in the presence of men who don't know you very well. And this way they won't recognize you immediately the slut I have warned you against becoming. Be sure to wash every day, even if it is with your own spit. Don't squat down to play marbles. You are not a boy, you know. Don't pick people's flowers. You might catch something. Don't throw stones at blackbirds, because it might not be a blackbird at all. This is how to make a bread pudding. This is how to make a dukona. This is how to make pepper pot. This is how to make a good medicine for a cold. This is how to make a good medicine to throw away a child before it becomes a child. This is how to catch a fish. This is how to throw back a fish you don't like. And that way, something bad won't fall on you. This is how to bully a man. This is how a man bullies you. This is how to love a man. And if this doesn't work, there are other ways. And if they don't work, don't feel too bad about giving up. This is how to spit up in the air if you feel like it. And this is how to move quick so that it doesn't fall on you. This is how to make ends meet. Always squeeze bread to make sure it's fresh. But if the baker won't let me feel the bread? You mean to say that after all, you are really going to be the kind of woman who the baker won't let near the bread? So, what did you think of this work? Is it confusing? Are the main ideas clear? Do you understand the gist of the text? Jamaica Kincaid is crossing many boundaries in this work. The text is both a story and a poem. It is also a list of reasoning given by the mother to her young daughter. Girl does not have a narrator in the conventional sense, because it does not have action in the conventional sense. There is no event or series of events acted out or told by the characters or by a third person narrator outside the action. Instead, the story is for the most part one speech delivered by the mother. The mother speaks in the first person, referring to herself as I. Even more important than the pronoun I, however, is the pronoun you. The mother directs a speech to her daughter. the girl of the title, and every instruction contains either the word you, as in this is how you set a table for tea, or the implied you, as in cook pumpkin fritters in very hot sweet oil. The absence of a climax here does not take away from the lyrical nature of the story. Neither are we confused about the message of the writer. The themes of the text are clear in spite of the absence of a climax. The mother is warning about the dangers of female sexuality. Even though the daughter doesn't seem to have reached adolescence, the mother worries that her current behavior, if continued, will lead to a life of promiscuity. The mother believes that a woman's reputation or respectability determines the quality of her life in the community. Sexuality, therefore, must be carefully guarded and even concealed to maintain a respectable front. Consequently, the mother links many tangential objects and tasks to the taboo topic of sexuality, such as squeezing bread before buying it, and much of her advice centers on how to uphold respectability. For her, domesticity is the key to respectability. She scolds her daughter for the way she walks, the way she plays marbles, and how she relates to other people. The mother's constant emphasis on this theme shows how much she wants her daughter to realize that she is not a boy and that she needs to act in a way that will win her respect from the community. Kincaid doesn't seem to have any formal structure in her writing. Still, she is able to create her own unique structure by focusing into the drama of her writing. The style of writing, however, takes a lot of practice. Remember, in order to deconstruct established styles and conventions of writing, you must first learn about writing and be completely familiar with the conventions themselves. Only then can you go on to demolish those conventions and traditions. Before attempting to write like avant-garde writers, you must practice and understand conventional structures of creative writing. The postscript is one such conventional element that is important to understand. The postscript can be defined as an additional remark or subscript, most often used in letters. In literature, it takes the form of important information or messages added at the end of the story. There are a number of texts which have a postscript in addition to the climax resolution structure and which take the story far beyond its structural dimensions. Do you remember The Paperback Princess by Robert Mudge? We used the fairy tale in an earlier video to explore the complicated climax and its structure. The story does not end with the climax with Princess Elizabeth rescuing the prince, Ronald. It goes beyond the resolution of the defeated dragon to give us a very important postscript. The story ends with the postscript. They didn't get married after all. This simple postscript changes the nature of the happily ever after trope to give us a radical version of the idea of happiness. Important questions raised by the postscript are: why is Elizabeth happy leaving Ronald? Should Elizabeth be happy? And is she happier now than at the beginning? Why or why not? The postscript takes the story beyond the dimensions of cliched fairy tales that end with a wedding to give us an alternative form of happiness. Elizabeth chooses to leave a narcissistic and ungrateful Ronald to choose an independent life with one straightforward postscript and changes the norms associated with social roles. The story ends with an image of the happy Elizabeth leaping off into the sunset on her own in a radical shift from the image of princesses marrying the prince. Robert Munsch redefined the genre by shifting the focus from marriage to independence and freedom for girls. Therefore, the postscript to a climax can, in certain literary efforts, elevate the experience to greater dimensions by offering an alternative or redefined preconceived notion. Let's conclude by looking at some of the important ideas that we have worked on today. First of all, it is possible to have an uncomplicated climax in the plot story that is elementary and accessible. Secondly, it is not necessary for every text to have a climax. Avant-garde, modernist, and reflective texts are often devoid of an expected structure and do not require a conventional climax to relay their primary message and the vision of the writer. Finally, the addition of a postscript can elevate even the most conventional narratives by contributing other elements, structures, and dimensions to the text, even when a climax is already present in the story arc. I hope you have learnt a lot about building a climax through these videos and will come back to learn some more about creative writing. Remember, the best way to learn to write is by reading and through continuous practice. So go ahead and practice, practice, practice. Goodbye.